Coffee buns are these white, soft, fluffy buns covered in a crunchy coffee topping and normally filled with salted butter inside. They taste so good. And today we're going to be making them with fruit yeast water. For more on fruit yeast water, do check out the link in the description box. We have a whole video on it. Okay, now we have that covered. Let's move straight on to the recipe. To begin with, make a pre-ferment. Poolish, 100 grams of bread flour and 100 grams of fruit yeast water. Then combine the ingredients thoroughly, which should take a couple of minutes, cover with plastic and leave to ferment for 10 to 18 hours or until it looks like this. Once you have the Poolish ready, we start on the final dough. First, pour the Poolish into a mixing bowl, making sure to scrape whatever sticks to the bowl. I like to do this set over a scale so I can double check that I've gotten all of the Poolish. The parts stuck to the bowl can sometimes weigh more than they look. When it's in, we add 40 grams of milk, 40 grams of sugar, 4 grams of salt, and a whole egg. Now before we bring in the bread flour, I'll stir this vigorously to sort of incorporate it. As soon as it's smooth like this, it's good, and I'm going to add 215 grams of bread flour. Lightly bring it together, and then I'm going to put this in my stand mixer with a dough hook attachment. Alternatively, you can turn this out onto a work surface to knead it by hand, although I must warn you that it'll be quite sticky, and despite that, you should refrain from adding flour as much as possible. As for the stand mixer, we're going to let it run on low for a minute or so until we can be sure that if we turn it higher, there won't be any flour flying in our faces. After that, we're going to bring it to a medium speed and let it go for something like 3 to 4 minutes or until it's turned into this nice cohesive ball. Then I'm going to add in 30 grams of this room temperature butter, and what room temperature means is that it's soft and malleable, which is going to make it a lot easier to mix in. There, I'll just place it in like that. Then turn the mixer back on to a medium-low speed. Let that run for 1 to 2 minutes before taking it back to medium. It's going to look like this, so don't be surprised. The dough will kind of separate and the butter will spread all over the sides. It's alright, just let it run and it'll eventually pick up all the butter. So we're going to let it run until it does that and passes the window pane test, which is going to take about 9 to 10 minutes on this machine. After 9 minutes, here's what it looks like. It's very well mixed, there's no butter left on the sides of the bowl, and it looks like it's got the gluten development we want, which I can double check by doing the window pane test. So I'll just take a portion of the dough and then try to stretch it out thinly enough to see light passing through it, just like a window pane. If it didn't pass the test, then I could just put it back into the mixer and let it run for another 2 minutes before checking again. In our case, the dough has passed the window pane test magnificently, therefore we can get it out of the mixer. First, prepare our work surface with a very light dusting of flour before scraping the dough out onto there. Then just shape it into a round bowl. And place it into a lightly oiled bowl. Cover it with plastic and let it rise for 3 to 4 hours. Once it's expanded, lightly flour a work surface and then we'll just pull the dough out of the bowl onto the surface. It should come out really easily, just like this. And when it's out, we'll just degas it with our hands. So, before dividing, I'll just shape it back into a bowl quickly. Then taking my scraper, I'll cut out about 80 grams of dough. For now, I'll set the rest of the dough aside and work on this. This 80 grams of dough is going to become the first layer of defense against any butter leaking out of the bread. Since I'm making 8 buns, I'll divide it into 8 portions, 10 grams each. Each one of these is going to hold a 5 grams piece of butter and help prevent it from leaking out. After dividing them all, I'll flatten them and then round them like this. Then put them all to the side and work on the rest of the dough. We're going to start by again rounding it into a boule. And cutting it into 8 equal portions. I'm also using a scale to make sure they're all the same size. They should all weigh about 60 grams, something in that neighborhood. After dividing all of them, we're going to pre-shape them into round little balls. You can do this really easily by flattening down, then pulling the edges into the center, forming a smooth side on the bottom. And to make it round, just do this motion with your fingers, sort of enclosing the little buns, and roll until they become round and tight. Then cover them and leave for 20 minutes. This is a bench rest, it's not meant for them to rise. What we actually want is just let the gluten relax enough for us to be able to shape it. When the 20 minutes are up, they'll look like this, a lot more relaxed and ready for us to shape, as well as insert butter into. First things first, I'll work on my smaller butter containers, moving them out. Flattening them all, popping any bubbles I see. Then I'll take my frozen butter out of the fridge and using some chopsticks, put the butter in the middle of the flattened doughs. Push it in and pull the edges to the center, making a seam, and then making sure to pinch it shut tightly. This is important because it really minimizes the risk of a butter leak. So when you pinch the seams, pinch tightly. Then just repeat for the rest. Now, we have our butter pieces enclosed, let's make the main buns. Sprinkle the work surface with a bit of flour. I'll take one bun out. Lay it down, then we'll pick up the rolling pin and roll them out a bit just to flatten it. take one of our dough-enclosed butter pieces, place it in the center of the bun seam side down, and seal it in like this. Pull all the edges into the center and pinch, again tightly as you can to prevent leaks. Repeat for the rest of the buns and place them onto parchment paper. I'm next going to cover the buns with some plastic to prevent them from drying out, and we're going to leave them for the final proof before baking. It's going to be about 2 hours or until they are about 1.5 times larger in size. While the buns are proofing, we're going to prepare our cookie crust. First, I'll prepare the instant coffee mix for flavor. I'm using a teaspoon of the instant coffee, to which I'm going to add 5 grams or a teaspoon of hot water. Stir to combine, and it's done. We're going to put this to the side for now and get to work on the rest of the topping first. So measure out 30 grams of room temperature butter, and what I mean by that is butter should be soft and malleable like this. Then we're going to chuck in 28 grams of sugar and cream together until it's pale and fluffy. Now I'm going to crack an egg. Beat it and pour in 25 grams of it into the butter and sugar mix. 25 grams of this egg is about half of it, so just pour it in. Mix vigorously and then sift in 35 grams of all-purpose flour. Pour in the coffee, then mix well. Ideally, it should look something like this, smooth and evenly colored. Prepare a piping bag next, since we're going to be piping these on top of the buns. To make getting all the batter in easier, I'm going to place the piping bag into a tall glass or container. Fold the sides over like this and scoop out all the mocha topping into it using a spatula. Then we're going to use a bench scraper to push down all the topping batter to the bottom of the bag. We want every last bit of it. And then we just tie it to close it and put it in the fridge until we need it. When the 2 hours are up, we'll return to the buns, take off the plastic, marvel at how they've grown, and get ready to pipe them with topping. So, cut off the tip of the piping bag and just pipe it in a circular way over the buns. You don't really need to be precise here because it'll melt in the oven and coat the bun. I've made some pretty wonky circles at times and they turned out fine. If there's a place you're worried about not covering, then you can just pipe that place with a bit more. We can now put them into the oven. We're going to bake them at 190 degrees Celsius for 25 to 30 minutes. Depending on the oven, the time may vary. when they're done, I'm going to leave them in the oven for a couple of minutes. This is a double check measure. If they start sinking, that's a sign of underbaking, and you can save them by turning the oven back on. Although their skin might wrinkle, there'll be no change in taste. And we're done! Beautiful, yummy coffee buns with a crunchy crust and soft salted butter inside. It's ridiculously good.